Okay, this is lab number 10 for physiology, and this is going to be all about the kidneys. So the job of the kidneys in our body is to filter our blood. They take out waste products like drugs and ions, too much water, urea, other things like that. They maintain fluid volume in our body, which also maintains our blood pressure. They maintain our pH and then lots of other important stuff. And so first we can look at the anatomy of a kidney. Coming into it, you have the renal artery, which brings the contaminated or unfiltered blood into the kidney, and the renal vein, which is where the clean blood leaves. These are the papilla of the kidney, and then this here is the ureter, where the urine is going to drain out of the kidney into the bladder and out through the urethra. And so zooming in on the actual filtration units of the kidney is the nephron, and there are probably millions and millions of these in each of our kidney. They're actually really tiny. First we'll start with the parts. So you're going to have the afferent arteriole, which goes into the glomerular capsule, and the glomerulus, which is the tangle of capillaries, and this whole section is the renal corpuscle. And so basically, as the blood flows in through the afferent arteriole, it's going to travel through these capillaries, and this huge surface area allows the glomerulus to basically filter out almost everything from the blood. Most of the water, most of the solutes, pretty much everything's coming out. This right here is just the efferent arteriole, where the blood leaves once it's been filtered. And so going from the renal corpuscle, we go into the renal tubule. Here's a full view of it. And so there's 4 main parts. This is the proximal convoluted tubule, which goes down into the big loop of Henle. This loop has a descending loop and an ascending loop on this side. It goes down and up, and then into the distal convoluted tubule, which then drains into the collecting duct, which is the last step before urine is basically finalized and made. And so I'm going to look at how salt in water is reabsorbed specifically, because that's one of the most important functions of the kidneys is water reabsorption and water balance. And so as the filtrate, which is what comes out of the blood from the glomerulus, moves through this tubule, it starts in the proximal convoluted tubule, where most of stuff like glucose and other ions and stuff is filtered back out into the blood, because we need those. We don't want to just pee them out. But down here in the loop of Henle is this really important system called the countercurrent multiplier system, which is all about sodium and water movement. And so we know that first the filtrate's going to go through the descending limb, but what we actually need to start with is what's going on in the ascending limb. And so in the ascending limb, active pumps are pumping out sodium, which is the red, into the interstitial fluid of the medulla of the kidney. And so as that salt is actively pumped out into the interstitial fluid around that tubule, chloride ions are also just passively following. So they're going out. And so what happens is the sodium and the chloride ions combine to form NaCl, which we will now see as salt, these white blocks. So now we have lots of salt in the interstitial fluid. And what we know is that water follows salt. Water moves into a hypertonic solution, which is what the interstitial fluid in that nephron has become. So as a result, as this filtrate is coming down the descending limb, all of this water is going to follow the salty interstitial fluid and get reabsorbed back into the body, which is good because we don't want to pee out all our water or we'll get dehydrated and die. And so basically this is a positive feedback loop that just keeps going and going and going, because over here salt is constantly being pumped into the interstitial fluid, which makes the middle salty, and then water is being pumped back out, and then this fluid that's coming, this filtrate that's moving down out of the descending loop back into the ascending loop is super concentrated. All the water's in here, so it's super salty, which then gives the ascending loop salt to pump out. And so it just keeps going and going, and then that's that part. Another factor is, we'll get rid of those. Another factor is urea. It's called the process in the kidneys is called urea recycling, and it's kind of the same way. A lot of the urea that's pulled out is going to help make this inner fluid salty or highly concentrated, which then again drives the reabsorption of water through these tubules. And the last step of filtration is when the filtrate makes its way to the collecting duct, and this is where any final modifications are made, and maybe a little more reabsorption of water, maybe some secretions that we need to get rid of last minute, anything like that. And then this filtrate moves down the collecting ducts, eventually into the ureters and into the bladder as urine, which is then excreted through the urethra. And that's pretty much the process of blood filtration and how the nephron filters the blood within our kidneys and our renal system.